question, am I going to show up? I show up to everything. I have no children, no husband. I am dedicated. I don't know if you heard what Laura said, but I'm a formerly incarcerated woman. That might startle some people. We have a whole bunch of people in prison. And my job is to bring them home. We have an overload. 2 million people are sitting in cages. That is to say that we can do better. And we can't do better if we continue to place people that come from these type of policing and district attorney atmosphere. And so why am I running? I'm running for a whole bunch of reasons. I sat around the round table this past 3 years. The round table through Harvard Kennedy School is really saying, Chief Justice Budd, Kimberly Budd, youngest black woman ever to be our Chief Justice, that looked at the racial disparities in our criminal justice system. And she wanted to change. But she also followed Judge Gantz's report. Judge Gantz was our Chief Justice, and he did a real massive dive on this criminal justice system, the climate in the courtroom. Black and brown people never get a shot. We know how poor our communities, black and brown communities are, and those are the highest populated in the country in these prisons. And Judge Gantz said, we have to stop it. When the report came out, unfortunately, he passed away. His wife, Deborah Ramirez, who was a professor at Northeastern University, begged the court to continue his work. And when Baker put this woman in place, Kimberly Budd, she said, let's do it, but let's get some formerly incarcerated people to have their experience. So for me, I'm a subject matter expert.
You know, you're an experienced woman.
I'm an experienced woman. I lived in these prisons. I suffered from domestic violence and sexual abuse growing up in my community. And so from there, I went into drug addiction, and I didn't know how to stop that cycle. It was the women in prison that raised me. The lifers who said, you can do better, Stacey, who pushed me to school, who pushed me in the law library. And I got awoken. I always say that I'm like a little egg that hatched. I'm like, what? We're doing what to people? We're just throwing them away and discarding them? Oh yeah, that was me. That was me in court time after time after time. Couldn't one judge? We did have one judge, Judge Coffey, who looked at me and said, what's the matter with you? And I turned around and I'm like, who was he talking to in the courtroom? I've never been humanized in a court. And my brain just started being interactive, like, maybe you need to talk to him. And manipulatively, I'm saying, no, don't talk to him. He's not going to help you. But something in my gut said, talk to him. And I just told him everything. Everything that happened to me in my life. Everything that I wanted to do in my life. And miraculously, I said, I want to go back to prison. And my brain is like, you want to go back to jail? What is wrong with you? You're really mentally ill. But no, I knew that I needed the help, and I knew that those women who were loving me and raising me in that prison could do more, and I could possibly give them something too. And that's what I did. I started my journey in the prison, came out of prison, went through Cambridge College, and I knew that I needed to design something different. And I knew that I needed to be at these tables. How are we going to make change if you don't have the people who experience it to make the change? And so that's what I chose to do. I met Laura, I met a team of women out here that are really saying, we mean business. We need to change some stuff. And we cannot continue to do that. I think I read somewhere that there wasn't even a person of color on the Governance Council since 16-something. Like, that's forever. Like, what? That's forever. That has to change. Secondly, we haven't had any clemency, with the exception of 2. I'm really grateful that Governor Baker brought out these 2 black young men who deserve to be home, but it took the Patriots, Devin Courtney, or McCourtney, to advocate for them. Is that how we're going to keep doing it? We got Kim Kardashian raising, flags about what happens in prison. We have the Patriots. Why can't it be us? Why can't someone hear us? Since 1997, we haven't had any clemency prior because of this Willie Horton thing that keeps haunting us.
That's right.
That's 30 years. 30 more years people have been in prison.
That's right.
If we're talking about making change, we have a governor right now who just did 9 pardons in her first administration.
She did.
9 pardons. She also accepted the clemency guidelines that needed to be changed, written by us and really reviewed and written by Professor Patty Gurman at Northeastern, who's a fierce advocate for parole. If you know anything about parole, Patty knows it. And the governor accepted it. So we're on the right track. She just accepted the no-cost call, so prisoners are able to call home and not having to choose between a child to feed at home and a child to call from a prison. That's big. We're doing something big. And so I'm here. I'm going to show up. I said I wasn't going to talk about Ionella, but let me just say this. In Boston, the chambers, city council chambers is named Chris Ionella after his father, who's been in office. When are we going to stop this nepotism?
Right.
He did office 40-some-odd years, and now we have Ionella 32 years. Nobody should sit on any of these lifetime sentences for a judgeship, and they continuously policing and district attorneys. That doesn't make me happy. It shouldn't make you happy either. And I want to say that in the past 5 years, we've worked on 12 wrongful conviction of black men. 12 in 5 years. 2 I worked on myself, and I'm not even a lawyer. This is the problem. If we can sit down and look at someone's history, Raymond Gaines, 47 years wrongfully convicted. Time after time, his appeal was denied because nobody took the time to look at his case. I sat in my backyard for 4 years and unfolded it and brought it into the innocent program. And they saw the injustice. We brought it into Judge Squire Lee. Judge Squire Lee is civil. She comes from civil matters, not a district attorney. She saw it in her eyes and said he was wrongfully convicted and released him after 47 years. But we have a district attorney who says, oh no, you're going back to jail. So for almost 4 years, he's been out on an ankle bracelet, on an ankle monitor, with the threat that he's going to go back at 70 years old, even though Squire Lee unfolded just what I found. So these are the injustices we're talking about. The governor's council can sit there and advise the governor that what you're nominating is not the right person. I would like to dive in and read some of the backgrounds on some of these judges. I would like to read some of these clemency applications. People are sitting in prison for decades. If we know the law that just changed for our young people who've been sitting in prison since they were 18, 19, and 20, and they just changed the law for them to start coming up on parole. These are people who've been in prison 50 and 60 years since they were 20. They're coming home. Are we prepared? I'd say no. I'm the only one in Boston that has a reentry program that has the element of trauma. It has the element to target the trauma through the world of arts. We have a whole theater in the basement. We have a whole outpatient program for men to come out and get the counseling and the services that they need and deserve. We feel like we've built a structured program. Even outside of us, we have many resources that our men and women can go to get the help they need. Since I've been open since 2016, not one person we brought out has harmed anybody. Every woman that we have brought home. Yeah, I mean, if we look at the history from Suffolk Law, Professor Sareed has done extensive research on women history. Framingham 8 in the 90s came home. We fight for women's rights. We look at disproportionate sentences. We brought Angie Jefferson home after 31 years. She should have had a manslaughter years back. Black woman, coming from a project, coming from a lot of harm herself. Her father was murdered. Her mother checked out mentally, started abusing her, putting her out in the hallway. She grows up at 18 and starts having children by the wrong men. She becomes abused. Her daughter, second child, 3 years old, Shanita, was 3 when her father was murdered. And when I heard this story, I'm like, Angie's telling me this in the prison. She's one of the women who enlightened me. You come from that severe abuse, your father was murdered, your daughter's father was murdered, there's something to that, and then you stab somebody and you murder, and you're in here for the rest of your life. Did anybody ever know your story? We need to start talking about these issues. We brought it to then District Attorney Rachel Rollins. She looked at the case. There was some unconstitutional issues from a racist judge who made racist statements that this black girl needs to go to jail for life. Nobody's really looking at the law, the Constitution. It's starting to get too personal. And we're saying we need to start humanizing people. And we need to stop just sending them to prison. But the only way we can do that is put the right judges in to say there's alternatives. We have alternatives to sentencing. Programming works. I even want to tell you that they just took out all the programs in prison. So what are we doing here? Our parole board is a mess. Starting to clean up a little bit. We have 2 people that just got nominated and we fought for them to get those seats. So things are changing. So I'm here, John, I'm going to show up. Whenever I need to show up, I'm going to show up. New knees and all. I'm going to come right